Welcome to How to Share, a podcast about collaboration in our families, friendships, at work, and in the world. I'm Wynne Leon, and in this episode, I'm delighted to be talking with corporate communications specialist Brian Hannon. After our podcast episode on optimism, Brian commented that he approached things differently. He often sees the risks in things, and only when acknowledging and working through those things does he move into the positives. Brian zeroes in on authenticity as the key for good communication, and that includes calling out downsides in order to work through them. We talk about how his perspective contrasts with his wife, who is nicknamed Rainbow Bright growing up. And we also discuss how parenting plays into our perspective and approach, both in keeping our kids safe and in helping them move past fears and anxieties. Brian tells us how he tempers his ability to see risks when providing feedback to colleagues, and also how humor plays a part in being able to deliver the downsides without being a downer. This is a great episode that presents another perspective on sharing our outlook on the future. We know you'll love it. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Wynne, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be talking to you because it's so much fun. And I loved your response to the recent podcast we did with Mark Petruska on
Yep.
optimism. I'm sure there's a lesson in commenting here because then I tapped you to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, don't comment.
Right. No good
I'm
deed
kidding,
goes
I'm kidding.
unpunished.
Yes. Well, and you and Mark are so optimistic, so I do get it. I get it.
Right. Well, and you just said that your filter is sort of to see the red areas. Is that right? Or can you say more?
Yeah. I think I think my natural filter is to see the risks, to see the challenges. Um, like as when that happens, I mean, I think in some ways I'm probably more like a risk management person or actuarial. I see the challenge areas first,
Yep.
and then once acknowledging that failure is an option or that challenges exist. That's how I then start to see, okay, there are opportunities here and there's good things that can come of this. And that's how I make my way to more of an optimistic or positive viewpoint. But
Right.
it definitely starts, I see the gray areas first, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I thought that was such a fascinating response because you were like, you see the danger zones, let's call them that first, and then by acknowledging that, it opens up your perspective. And there's something that's very Zen Buddhist about that.
Well, I have issues, and maybe this is the Pollyanna. I have issues when that failure isn't addressed or isn't acknowledged. Just be happy, just be positive. That doesn't work with me. If anything, I feel like I get more worried or I get more like hesitant about trying something new. It's that acknowledgement. It's that acknowledgement that life has its challenges and that, if you see it, if it's acknowledge, if it's put out there, then okay, then the glass is half full, and okay, I like my chances then. I like where this is going, and I think it's, the story I mentioned to you is, as a kid, little kid going to school, I whined, I complained. Of course, then when I had a chance to, express myself and then go to school, I was like, oh, that's where my friends are. And that's, that's where good things happen. But it's that acknowledgement. If I don't personally have that in work or whatever, family, I think I do come across, or I do see more of the challenges that are out there and a little more of the woe, woe is me or Eeyore mentality.
Well, and I would imagine that if you had a leader that doesn't address the downsides, then that's like wow, is this person really even on the map of reality?
Yeah, and I think that's where I think it really does get into leadership, because if you have a great leader who sees what things can be, but brings people along versus that Pollyannish, then I'm all on board. I
Yeah,
can be one of the most positive people there is, but I don't like to fake it. I don't like to
yeah,
lie, and
right.
I think that's where sometimes there can be challenges.
Yeah. I think authenticity comes out as something that is necessary no matter what. But when
I think there's something there. I think, we've talked in the past about why I started blogging. It was
yeah,
that chance to be authentic and
yeah,
to express some of that. I don't think it's pessimism. I think it's
yeah,
realism,
yeah,
and to put that out there. And I think that's sometimes where
yeah,
my writing now, it's that chance to have my say
yeah,
to maybe some of what I'm hearing or seeing.
right, right. So when you're sharing, when you see the downsides or whatever you want to call them, the downsides, the risks, the red areas, how do you share that point of view with others? Do you filter it? Do you wait for the appropriate time?
I think I watch a little bit because I don't want to be overly negative. I
Hmm.
mean, you and I just talked. No one wants to be a pessimist.
Right.
No one wants to be a downer. I think what yeah, so I think I do couch it to a certain extent. Like we were going out with someone recently, and I wasn't going to tell my friends that, oh, I'm worried about, I wanted to go out,
Hmm.
but now I don't.
Hmm.
I ended up having a great time, but no one
Right.
wants to be a jerk, or no one wants to be that downer. I think where I couch it, or where I've learned over the years, is how to couch it in terms
Hmm.
of, to not just be that worrisome Eeyore, but to, um, find ways to show how that risk, or those red areas, how that's actually a benefit. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this might not, we might not want to go to this restaurant because that's going to be really busy at that time. How about we go here? Or how
Hmm.
about we plan something
Hmm.
else? So again, I think it's a way of turning that
Yeah.
negativity into a positive.
Yeah, and not just assuming it's going to work out, but applying a
Yep.
little bit of critical thinking to it.
Common sense, critical
Hmm.
thinking. I think that's where, like I always think of like team projects, where I see the value of that isn't necessarily thinking of what our dream solution is, but let's talk in the, how can we help everyone? How can we get from
Hmm.
point A to point B?
Hmm.
And maybe it's a little more to people from the technology world, a little more agile like versus
Hmm.
waterfall,
Hmm.
in terms of bringing people along on the
Yeah.
journey.
And I think one of the pros of that approach is that you can really expand the vision in some ways,
Yes.
right? Because if you can see the gray areas, the problem areas, you can, you know, create a vision, as you said, that includes more people or addresses all these things and can sometimes be bigger because you're hitting that out of the gate.
Yeah, I think it does expand. I think it brings more people under the
Yeah.
umbrella, and it's more. Again, it's not like, it's more real life.
Hmm.
It's what we're all facing versus trying to force yourself to be so positive that it's not based
Hmm.
in reality, or doesn't
Hmm.
have a strong foundation.
Right.
I wish, I mean, maybe this goes to your point of view. I mean, I wish I was naturally
Mm.
more
Yeah.
positive. I got to work my way through it. And
Yeah.
this also gets to how the POV of others, point of view of others. I don't always, like, I've watched at times, I don't want to come across as being Pollyanna. Like, some people
Hmm.
will see that, like, wait a minute, oh, they don't see all those mind
Hmm.
games that I've worked through.
Right.
And like, no, I see the dangers. I see the good and the
Yeah.
bad.
Right.
I choose to go to the good.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I have to be, I am careful that, I'm thinking a lot about this. Someone else might not be, they
Right.
may approach it differently.
Right. And when you do have, I don't know if pessimistic is the right, but when you do have that opposite point of view, how does humor play in then for you?
Oh, I have very sarcastic.
Yeah.
I think even there's a certain amount of skepticism, certain amount
Mhm.
of gallows humor. I noticed it, like early on in my career, writing, being a reporter, like a certain amount of gallows humor. The example I mentioned to you previously, like you climb mountains. The way I would go about that in my head, I'm whining, but then at the same time, I'm like, all right, this is I'm out of breath. This is a hard climb. But the guy climbing, man or woman climbing Everest, I'm sure they're having more
Mhm.
problems than I am right now. So it's that
Yeah.
using that gallows humor to push me
Yeah.
up the mountain.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right,
So yeah,
right. Well, and as I mentioned to you, is I whine in my head all the way up those mountains. It hurts.
I don't
Mhm.
believe you, Win. I
Mhm.
don't believe you.
Yeah. It happens, and then the funny thing is that after a certain amount of time, you just go numb. I mean, that they're so sort of not. I mean, not.
Yeah, I
Hopefully,
do.
not your
Yep,
extremities, but I mean, mentally, it just becomes so repetitive that you're
yep,
neither
yep.
optimistic or pessimistic. You're just there.
The next step. The next step, the next. Yeah, and
Right.
I think that's where I try to use that humor to get to that point where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, just
Okay.
just not thinking so much, just doing the next step and just not either negative or positive, just trying to get to take
Hmm.
the
Yeah. It's almost like you're looking into a basket and you're seeing everything. You're seeing the red flags that pop out, but it's like you can dig into a different layer underneath that once you have.
I think that's yeah, again, it's the overthinking, but yeah, I do think it's like digging under. It's like cutting the onion, and I think it's cutting away. I think some of it is as I'm trying to get to a more positive state. Another thing I mentioned to you, I'm thinking of all the things I learned over the years. Some of my mother, the
Hmm.
old time wisdom that I learned over the years of, again, trying to force myself to be grateful, trying
Hmm.
to remind myself that this too shall pass. And again, it's seeing the holistic viewpoint that everything, there's good, bad, and
Right.
I'd rather choose to. In some ways, I'd rather choose to look to the good. That's how I get there. It's
Right.
definitely looking at everything.
Yeah. So do you and your
It's
wife
crazy.
balance? Do you and your wife balance each other out in some ways?
She is much more optimistic, much more positive. Her nickname in college was Rainbow Bright, so that sort of
That's
indicates
so good.
that.
But it
Yeah,
sounds, yeah,
I think we do balance each
yeah.
other out, though.
Do you think that parenting made a difference in how you saw things? Because I mean,
Um,
that's one where
oh,
area where you have to see the risks, right?
yeah. I think it does. I think I was probably much more realistic in terms of what was going to work, what wasn't going
Yeah,
to work. Yeah. It is interesting. I got to think about that one a little bit in
yeah,
terms of
yeah,
the two of us and our styles. She's definitely much more
yeah,
uh calmer, where I tend to maybe be a little more
yeah.
emotional. Again, I think we get to the end point at the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm doing more thinking in
Yeah,
my.
right. Like
and,
let's
and and
take,
I need that reminder to get
yeah,
out of my head at times too.
sure, sure. Let's take a, you know, 7-hour road trip with our kids that are under 5.
Uh,
And maybe that needs a little bit of a
oh yes, definitely. I can relate to that.
I bet
Uh,
and it's funny because I was just writing about how being a single parent has changed my sort of willingness to be one extreme or the other. I'm pretty
yep.
touchy-feely. That's my natural go-to place. I'm pretty like, oh yeah, let's try it, but it's been fascinating for me to develop a more balanced persona in myself because I don't have anybody to do the
Yeah.
other end with me. Or, I mean, I don't do things with my friends, but I'm the one
Yeah.
that's responsible for this little party of 3. And
Yes.
so it has developed in me a different ability to kind of walk a center line.
How do you do that? How have you,
Uh,
especially when you
yeah.
have a child who may not want to try? You're
Yes.
natural. You definitely have
Yes.
that try, like you were talking to Mark.
Yeah.
And like I'm fascinated how you get the two little one. Well, they're perfect. So your children are awesome. So I'm sure you don't have
hmm
this
hmm
problem. But how do you get them to go along when they don't want to?
That's a great question. But it's a little bit, it goes a lot to what you just said about acknowledging the downsides first. I mean, we usually go there, like, okay, well, why don't you want to? All right. And yep, failure is definitely possible, but and then, we just kind of take those baby steps, which is, I think, a little bit how you described it. Of,
Yeah.
okay, you know, yeah, it's not going to always work out. And this goes to another podcast that I did that was super interesting. It was with a mom and her daughter. The mom's
Mhm.
93, the daughter is
Wow.
our age. And
Yeah.
um the mom has all these great lessons because she's lived through polio epidemic, World
Oh
War
my
II.
goodness.
Her husband died at an early
Oh,
age, 9/11. I mean, she's been through a lot. And her, attitude is that there are no bad things in life, only the things that you don't learn from, which was, I love that. I totally
I
love that
love that.
because I'm a
Especially
really
that
good.
age. Wow.
And that's kind of tends to be, I think, how I, approach it with my kids. Is like, oh yeah, that didn't work out very well, but what did we learn from it? And that does those
Yep.
lessons don't come right away. They don't come at the moment you're in the depths of it. They come with reflection, with writing. I mean, that's one of the things I love writing for,
Yeah.
is getting to that, is to get the to glean the good nuggets out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my writing makes me wiser than I really am.
Me too.
It makes me sound like, so I know all these. No, it's slowing down and trying to
hmm
put my
hmm
put my feelings down that I
Right.
start to say, okay, now I get
Yeah.
it. I
Right.
understand what the
Yeah.
value of what I was supposed to learn from that. But that
Yeah.
that's I love that
Yeah.
wisdom. I think that's a great way of looking at life.
It really was, and it was inspiring conversation. And I think then also, as we write it down and slow it down, we can kind of plumb the depths of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not just going to gloss over um, the
Yeah.
the realities of that this sucks, whatever this
Yep.
might be, or
Yep.
that we didn't, my disappointment that we didn't fail this time.
I think there is a lot of
Mhm.
value in acknowledging the suck.
Yeah,
That like I used to love running and
yeah,
I'm trying to get back into a little bit. And I think there's value of like, okay, this hurts.
yeah, yeah.
But I see the long game. I think a lot of what I get at, or as I'm working through, I see the long game.
Mhm.
That okay, this isn't. I might not like. It might put me in an awkward situation, but long term, okay, this is going to
Yeah,
be good. This is going to
yeah,
be fun,
right.
and I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to get something from it, and that's my ability. That's I think my superpower is the ability to say, okay, I'll hurt now, but longer term, I'll get something out of this.
Yeah, yeah. I and Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun. I mean, she's written extensively about looking at what's the worst that can happen as a
Yeah.
way to approach it, as a way to get past it, as a way to
Yep.
manage the fear about it. And the Buddhists talk a lot about looking at death as a way as
Wow.
a way to acknowledge life. I think that
Yep.
they're the both sides of the coin, whether you're inhabited in yourself or in a relationship, they really do bring you value.
Um,
Yes. Oh, yes.
to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that
Well,
point.
I'll tell you what's going to matter in 10 years is that you had this conversation with me because I
Yes.
just so many great nuggets, so many ways to flip, you know, a coin doesn't stay on one side. You can see both sides and um, you know, flip it flip it as much as we want. But with that but it doesn't work if you don't do it with authenticity. Well, I am a good trier. I'm good at that. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you so much. Always
So
thank you. Thank you for listening. Our music was written for us by the incredible duo of Jack Campora and Rob Koenig. For show notes and more great inspiration, see avitiva.com, avitiva.com.